few minutes later, Tookie stood in the doorway of the bedroom she shared with Miracle. She was trying to enter the room, but a pile of leotards blocked her way, as well as a pair of toe shoes, 2 pairs of jazz shoes, and 1 stray sandal. A long piece of duct tape bisected the room, separating Tookie's side from Miracle's, but it made no difference. Miracle's mess had invaded every corner in the same way mildew grew on tub tile. Dirty clothes were piled on the floor, makeup trays and brushes and used cotton balls and a pair of dirty socks lay strewn about Tookie's otherwise neatly organized dresser. There was a sweat-stained leotard on Tookie's pillow. Ample cupped bras that certainly didn't belong to Tookie were draped across Tookie's carefully made bed, and torn-out pages from Modelland magazine were scattered across the floor like leaves that had fallen from a fashion tree. Tookie tossed the bras, 3 pairs of dance shoes, and a variety of necklaces, bracelets, and leg warmers off her bed and onto Miracle's side of the floor. Every evening, Tookie flung Miracle's junk to her side, and every afternoon when she came home, it had all migrated back to Tookie's side once more. Tookie slumped down on her bed. Miracle is walking on the day of discovery with a smize, she thought once more. She wasn't sure why it bothered her. Everyone in her class was walking. Abigail, Zarpessa, Zarpessa. The image of Zarpessa and Theopolis kissing in the hall flashed in her mind. She closed her eyes and clenched her fists. If only Zarpessa hadn't come up when Tookie and Theopolis were having their moment. Had Theopolis really spoken to her? Would she ever get a moment like that again? She closed her fingers around the newly defective button. This piece of Theopolis fit perfectly in the heart of her palm, the metal pin cold against her dry skin. She gazed at its lacquered message. Theopolis. Oh, Theopolis, Tookie swooned. She closed her eyes and licked her lips. Your salted caramel eyes, Theopolis. She imagined Theopolis right in front of her. She leaned toward him, his eyes closed, her lips caressing the air. We can call our boy Tukophilus and our girl Thuti. She puckered and her lips connected with a solid cold surface. Theophilus, she thought, oh yes, baby. I'm so happy you're giving me my very first kiss. What are you doing? Tookie opened her eyes. She was face to face with herself. Her lips were in contact with Miracle's full-length mirror. There, on the reflected glass, was the blurry outline of her broad, puffy lips. Tookie whirled around. Miracle stood in the doorway with one hand on her hip. Miracle's eyes glimmered. Are you making in with yourself? Tookie ducked her head. Miracle pirouetted to Tookie's perfectly made bed and flopped down on the mattress. Who do you want to kiss? Tookie turned away, clamping her mouth shut. Brian Quincy, Miracle teased. Ugh, no. Who then? It doesn't matter. Don't feel bad about not doing kissing yet, Miracle said in a teasing voice. It feels like a little wormy man is crawling in your mouth anyways. A wave of humiliation rushed through Tookie. Who says I haven't kissed anyone? Okay, so maybe it's true, but is it written all over my face? Miracle smiled. Come on. But it's okay. Doing kissing with yourself is better than doing no kissing at all, Dookie. She giggled a little as she left the room, managing to drop a cardigan sweater, a tap shoe, and several gum wrappers on Tookie's side as she left. Tookie's eyes popped open. Cold, Chipped tile pressed against the bottoms of her feet. Icy wind gushed around her flannel hand-me-up pajamas. She wasn't in bed, as she was supposed to be, but standing in the doorway between the kitchen and the living room. How did I get here? She couldn't remember turning the knob of her bedroom door, walking down the stairs, or padding through the hall. She then looked into the dark room in front of her and gasped. Balanced on one hand in the center of the living room's tattered carpet was her father, clad in a colorful unitard. His waist twisted in the air. His legs were bent at an awkward angle, his muscles strained and shook. An empty bottle of tater mash, a colorless distilled beverage imported from Kremlingard, lay tipped over on the floor. Next to it was a faded photograph of the incredible Chris Kremkrobat, otherwise known as Christopher de la Creme. In the photo, Tookie's father still possessed both of his green eyes, and he didn't have the couch potato paunch. Tookie ducked behind the wall. When she was much younger, she'd assisted her father during many of his acrobatic practices. He'd even told her lovingly that they made a good team. And she had attended many of her father's performances with the Circo del Sol troupe before his tragic accident. She could still remember that day in almost perfect detail. The sparkling gold cover of the programs, the plush red velvet seats, the set-your-mouth-on-fire taste of the bag of Gouda and habanero-flavored popcorn. And the sharp 5-foot swords that pointed skyward all along the perimeter of the stage. 3 tumblers juggling fire with their tongues while jumping on humongous, translucent trampolines suspended over the audience had been the first act. Next was a group of 10-year-old girls, contortionists, who had backflipped into deep, hot pink-dyed swimming pools full of crocodiles. And then the lights had dimmed, and mysterious music filled the air. A single spotlight shone down on Tookie's ripple-bodied father, the headlining star of the Cirque del Sol. Tookie had swelled with pride as her father looped and danced and climbed a dental floss thin wire. Her father, the mighty Chris Kremkrobat, was going to execute a new move that evening. Circo del Sol had billed it as the first time any human had ever attempted such a feat. Mrs. de la Creme was full of pride that evening, too. However, right as Tookie's father had reached the 7-story landing on the stage, Mrs. de la Creme pulled out her mirror. It had a bit of wrinkle redux to her tanned and hideously lined face. "I want to look my best when the camera's all turned to me after his feat is done," she murmured. But the mirror caught a beam of light that shone right into Chris Kremkrobat's eyes, momentarily blinding him. In a panic, he lost his footing and fell 7 stories. Most acrobats would have had extensive injuries or even died, but not Tookie's nimble father. He tucked his body and landed smoothly on his upper back, propelling himself forward into a smooth tumble. The audience erupted into cheers. Chris Kremkrobat then arched upward to stand from his back bend and face his adoring, applauding, whistling, screaming fans. Ever the devoted showman, he thrust himself forward into a deep bow, impaling his eye on one of the 5-foot swords at the perimeter of the stage. Tookie had wrestled past the security barricade and run to the stage. Pools of her father's blood splattered the stage floor along with pieces of flesh, and there, staring up at her, was her father's eye. Disembodied, lifeless on the stage floor, gazing at Tookie accusingly as if asking, "Why?" In the days that followed, Tookie was afraid her father would die. But when they'd gotten wind that the blade had caused no brain or nerve damage, she'd rejoiced, which angered her mother. "Don't you see?" she cried in Tookie's face. "This is the end for him. He only has one damn eye. He's damaged, defective, done." His mother had then calmed down and held Tookie's shoulders. "It was a freak accident, okay? You and I do not have any idea where that beam of light came from that made him fall." Tookie had been only 8 years old, but she'd fully understood what her mother was telling her. "Forget what happened. Tell no one."